Welcome back to the channel, you guys. On today's episode, I'm going to be giving you a market update. We have the market data for the Reno Sparks housing market for the closeout of February. There's a lot to unpack here, and as always, if you stay tuned and stay with me until the end, I'm of course going to give you advice for both buyers and sellers, as well as my predictions for the month ahead. So make sure you watch until the end. Okay, we're gonna dive right in. I'm gonna start with the median sales price. As always, keep in mind, median does not mean average. The two are not synonymous, but the median sales price in our market did surprisingly decrease ever so slightly. I do believe this is probably a response to the mortgage interest rates. If you guys remember at the end of Q4, there was a lot of buzz around the fact that mortgage interest rates were predicted to absolutely plummet this year. I did believe that they would go down, and I still do believe that they would go down, but we are experiencing a significant moment of turbulence. Here we are at the end of Q1, and rates did come down, and during that time, we did see buyers absolutely flood the market, and they did go back up, hovering just in the high 6% range. Don't take that as gold. You're gonna wanna connect with a lender. I can help you out with that, but let's just keep going. So the median sales price landed at the closeout of February at $567,500. This is down month over month by less than 1%, so really not that significant, but it is up year over year by 8.5%. So even if you bought last year at this time when everyone was saying it's a terrible time to buy, your property most likely increased by about 8 to 9%. So this price tag coming down, it's not really that significant, being that it's only less than 1%, but it is worth talking about that the fact that when interest rates were down, there were a couple of weeks when they were a lot lower in the beginning of this year. We did see buyers absolutely flood the market. There were stacks of business cards of all of the agents who had been at every listing. There were bidding wars, there were over asking offers coming in, and all that took was a very small drop in mortgage interest rates. So that's telling us that these rates are suppressing a lot of buyers, but it's also telling us that as rates come down, we are going to see a lot more competition in this market. And if you've been following me for a while, or if you have common sense or any kind of sense of economics, you know that competition drives up price tags. Keep that in mind. I'm not going to go any further into that now, but we will talk about buyer and seller advice at the end of this video, so just stay tuned. The next data point is really interesting, especially following the median price tag coming down. We're going to talk about the number of closed sales, you guys, and this number did drastically increase by over 37% month over month from the close out of January, landing at 214 sales. This is almost a 17% increase year over year as well. So I believe this is in relation to, as I was just talking about, the couple of weeks there where we did see mortgage interest rates come down, we did see market activity pick up. Remember that these are lagging metrics. So when we're talking about closed sales, deals that closed in the month of February, these deals were getting into contract at least 30 days prior, so probably early January or so. Median days to contract, this one I think is among the biggest changes month over month. It's almost a 43% decrease from the closeout of January, and nearly a 49% decrease year over year. So we're landing at right about 20 days. If you weren't aware, median days to contract is basically how long it takes a listing from the time it goes live on the MLS to a time that it accepts an offer and goes under contract as its status. That is the timeline that we're talking about. 20 days is not a lot of days. So properties are not sitting for a very long time when they are appropriately priced. Of course, certain price ranges do have kind of their own cadence with this. For example, luxury listings are not kind of in this same realm. Usually those are going to take at least 90 days to sell, and I'm talking about listings closer to the 800,000 and higher range. Also, certain niche properties like the downtown high-rises, homes that are in golf course communities, those kinds of listings tend to sit longer. Those tend to have a very niche buyer, but what I am talking about is your standard single family listing. So 20 days at the closeout of February, not a long time. So if you're thinking about selling, now might be your moment, but I'm gonna get into all of my buyer and seller advice at the end of this video, so make sure you keep watching. Percent of list price received. So this is talking about where a property is listed as far as price tag and how much of that the seller is actually yielding when they get an offer accepted and a deal closed. And that number is coming in right at 99%. This has barely changed in quite a while, actually. I don't think since I started creating these market updates that I've ever seen this number dip below like 97%. So this number is less than 1% higher than it was month over month and less than 2% higher than it was year over year. So we're not going to talk too much about that. Just know that if you are listing your home, you're going to want to make sure it's priced appropriately. More on that later, so stay with me. Median sold price per square foot. And now keep in mind that may not be the same as the offer that was accepted. Between offer acceptance and deal closing, we do have a lot of negotiations that happen, usually in the form of seller credits for repairs and such. But median sold price per square foot landed at $333 per square foot in our market. This is up over 5% month over month and up a whopping 12.8% year over year from last year. So price tags are still holding strong, you guys. Our price per square foot is not cheap. It's a common misconception. If you're a relocating buyer or you're thinking about becoming one, a lot of people think that life here is pretty affordable, and in a lot of ways it is, and I've made a lot of videos about what that might look like, but as far as price per square foot, this market is very expensive. Let's talk about number of new listings. So this number shot up by 15%, coming in at 237. Year over year, this also increased by more than 10%. So I do think with us getting over the hump of the holidays, being into the new year, now we're kind of looking down the pike at spring, although you wouldn't know it from this snowmageddon that we're in the middle of right now. People are starting to get back into the flow of the normal market. Spring market usually picks up. Summer is usually piping hot, just like the weather. So I do think we are kind of at the beginning stages of that. Keep in mind too that all of this is sort of lagging as far as the metrics go. When people started to see, oh hey, the market's picking up for those few weeks when the rates came down and the market was absolutely flooded with buyers and we were having really competitive situations happen, I do believe a lot of sellers probably awakened to the fact that, oh, the flat market's over, it's time to list my house, and a lot more inventory came online. I will say on the ground working with buyers, it does feel like there are a lot more options than there were in Q3 and Q4 of last year, so that's great news if you're thinking about shopping. More on that though, so stay with me to the end. We're almost there. You've been very patient. This next number might throw you for a loop. So while our number of new listings increased significantly, our metric for active inventory decreased. Active inventory is down over 10% month over month and down nearly 24% year over year, landing right at 344. With active inventory being down and number of new listings being up, I think it's speaking to the overall scarcity factor in our market. Even though it does feel like there are a lot more options and a lot more to look at for buyers, it is still very fast paced. Let's talk a little bit further about the scarcity factor. So our month supply of inventory took a pretty steep nosedive, nearly 35% less than we had month over month at the closeout of January, and also almost 35% less than we saw year over year. This is landing at 1.6 months of inventory. That's not a lot, you guys, especially when the median days to contract is only 20 days. Basically, a lot of people say that in a balanced market, we see about 4 to 6 months of inventory. I don't think that's really true anymore. In the post-COVID economy, that's just not how things are working. But I will say having less than 2 months supply of inventory in our total MLS is not much. It's moving fast. It's overall pretty freaking hot. All right, the moment you've all been waiting for. If you've remained with me this long, I thank you for your patience. Now we're going to talk about best advice for both buyers and sellers. Let's start with buyers. So if you're thinking about buying in this market or you are shopping actively in this market, you're going to want to keep in mind that The interest rates are very turbulent. If you are shopping with a loan or you're using financing to purchase your home, you're going to want to stay in very close communication with your mortgage lender. If you have a great realtor, they're going to do a lot of that for you. When I'm shopping with buyers, I will literally send the whole list of all the properties we're going to see in a day to a lender and make sure that on that day, with the way that mortgage rates are working, that exact moment in time, that it's going to work for the buyer, because that is how much fluctuation we're seeing and how often. So you're going to want to make sure that you're really paying attention to your numbers. What you may qualify for on Tuesday may be completely different than what you're qualifying for on Friday. So just keep a really close look at that. Also, as long as listings are priced appropriately, it does appear that sellers are able to get pretty much what they're asking for. So make sure that your agent is running comps for you before you're writing an offer. I don't ever advise just taking blindly what the listing price is and deciding that that's appropriate. You never really know who the listing agent is or what their strategy was. You also never know what the seller situation is. Maybe they are desperate. Maybe they're motivated. Maybe they're just throwing it out there really high to see what happens. And if they get a good offer, then they're gonna sell, but otherwise they're gonna keep it. So you don't really always know that, and you don't wanna walk into a situation blindly. You really wanna make sure that your agent is helping you with your due diligence before you write that offer. Make sure that you are looking at plenty of comps and making sure that the amount that you're offering makes sense. Another thing you're really gonna wanna make sure that they are doing is calling the listing agent, finding out if they have other offers on the table, finding out how showing traffic has been, etc. Because if you're not competing against anyone else, there's really no reason to overpay, right? However, in a lot of situations and for listings that are competitively priced or priced to sell, you want to know that, right? Because if you're up against 2, 3, in some cases 4 other offers, you're going to want to come in with your highest and best right off the bat and not play games. So in this specific moment in time in our market, every single deal is very, very unique. There's no like one size fits all advice for buyers or even for sellers, but the advice that I have is to make sure that your agent is working for you, right? Like put us to work. Make sure that they're making those phone calls, that they're running those comps, that they're talking to your lenders. Make sure that you have very clear information before you're just shooting an offer in the dark, right? Because at the end of the day, the value of a property is really what a buyer is going to pay for it, and nothing else matters. The seller situation doesn't matter. The competition doesn't matter. It's really what that number is when the deal closes. So just keep that in mind. Let's talk about seller advice. So if you are thinking about listing your home, or if your home's already on the market, my best advice for you right now is to price it for what it's actually worth. And of course, as I just mentioned, what it's worth is what a buyer's willing to pay. But what I really mean is make sure that your pricing strategy is educated. Make sure that you are not overpricing. If you are underpricing because you have a situation wherein you have to vacate the home or you are in contract on another home with a timeline, okay, that's a different story. But I would definitely not be overpricing your listing. I would actually never advise you to do that, but especially in this market, because every buyer situation is so unique, the best piece of advice I have is to price your listing at fair market value, and that's going to give you the most leverage. We are seeing a lot more listings come online. That number of new listings metric was a huge jump month over month and year over year. That said, active inventory is down, a month's supply of inventory is down, so things are moving, but you want to make sure that your listing isn't getting stigmatized because it's the one that is overpriced when compared to all the rest that are similar. I do believe, regardless of what happens with mortgage interest rates, that we are in for a piping hot summer. If you are thinking about listing your home, now is a really good time to start preparing all the pre-listing things. Have your agent come over and do a walkthrough and give you a checklist of everything that needs to go, everything that needs to be cleaned, all repairs that need to be made. As the seller, you actually have negotiating power yourself with your agent. When you are interviewing agents, find out what they'll offer you. Find out not only the percentage that they're going to charge for the commission to list your home, and they all do, so don't be shocked by that. There is a fee for listing your home. Is the agent going to help you prepare the home for it going to market? What else is included? Can we talk about photography? Can we talk about marketing? You know, what are you getting? It's not as easy as it was to just put it on the MLS and let it sell itself. So you're going to want to make sure that you have an agent who's very savvy and has a really solid strategy in place for you. All right, as far as market predictions go, I do believe, even though rates are having a bumpy ride on the way down, I do think overall by the end of the year, they are going to be lower than they have been. I don't know how much. I'm really hopeful that we're going to see a 5 in the beginning of those numbers, but I am not a psychic. I don't have a crystal ball. I do think, regardless of what happens, that the market is on its way to heating back up. I think this summer is going to be absolutely bananas. Those couple of weeks where we did see the rates dip just ever so slightly were insane. It felt like July and it was only the end of January. So that said, make sure you have your game face on, make sure you have your strategies in place, make sure you have the ideal team to assist you between your realtor, lender, and maybe even your title office if you are a seller. Make sure you have escrow pre-opened and ready to roll. If you don't know what any of this means or you have any questions, I'm your girl, give me a shout. And hey, if you are thinking about making a move and you don't know where to start, or if you have any questions, I would love to give you free advice. I'll hop on a call with you when it's convenient for you and get your questions answered and help you devise your next and best steps. There's a link to do that in the show notes below, so don't be shy, hit me up, I'm your girl. I put out videos every single week about the Northern Nevada lifestyle, the Reno Sparks housing market, and of course, all things to do with buying and selling real estate. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.